New Orleans, where the air hums with jazz, history, and whispers of the unknown. But beneath the charm lies a darkness that refuses to fade. Have you heard the story of the Carter brothers? Two seemingly ordinary men whose quiet lives masked a sinister secret, a hunger that could never be satisfied. Vampires, madmen, or something far worse? Tonight we uncover the truth behind one of the Crescent City's most haunting legends. Stay close, because once you hear this tale, you'll never look at shadows the same way again. Have you ever walked the streets of New Orleans at night, feeling a chill that creeps up your spine, as though the very air is alive with secrets? The Crescent City is a place of beauty, culture, and haunting mysteries. Among the tales of restless spirits and hoodoo magic lies a legend so sinister it has left generations shivering in its wake. This is the story of the Carter brothers, the so-called vampires of New Orleans. It all began in the 1930s, in a modest neighborhood of New Orleans. The Carter brothers, John and Wayne, were two young men in their early 30s. They were quiet, unassuming, and hard workers who seemed like any other ordinary citizens. Yet, something about them always felt off. Neighbors would later describe them as polite, but distant, with piercing eyes that made your stomach churn if you stared too long. The brothers lived in an apartment on Royal Street in the French Quarter. The building itself was old, with creaking wooden floors and a faint smell of mildew that seemed embedded in the walls. At the time, no one suspected what horrors were unfolding behind their closed doors. The legend begins to take shape on a seemingly normal day when a young woman, weak and trembling, stumbled out of the Carter brothers' apartment, fleeing the streets until she found the police. Her clothes were tattered, her skin pale as a sheet, and her arms bore wounds, tiny puncture marks, as though she'd been bitten. Her account of the events is a story that would haunt the city forever. She claimed she had been held captive for days by John and Wayne Carter. They'd tied her up and drained her blood, not all at once, but a little at a time. She had no idea how she'd escaped. She only remembered gnawing through the ropes that bound her while the brothers were out. The police were skeptical, but decided to investigate. They arrived at the apartment, expecting to find little more than an overactive imagination. What they discovered was far more horrifying. Inside, the apartment was dark and cold, the windows covered with thick curtains. As the officers' eyes adjusted to the dim light, they found something straight out of a nightmare. 4 other victims were bound and gagged, their bodies frail and pale from blood loss. They were barely alive, but conscious enough to plead for help. But in the kitchen, the officers found dozens of glass jars filled with what appeared to be human blood. The smell was unmistakable, metallic and nauseating. It was as though the Carter brothers were stocking up, preparing for something unimaginable. John and Wayne Carter were apprehended later that evening as they returned home. When questioned, their calm demeanor sent shivers down the officers' spines. They admitted to everything without hesitation, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed to survive," John allegedly said, his voice eerily calm. "You wouldn't understand," Wayne added with a faint smile that revealed unnaturally sharp teeth. The brothers' trial was swift. The evidence was undeniable, and their victims' testimonies sealed their fate. They were sentenced to death by hanging, a punishment the people of New Orleans hoped would end the nightmare. But the legend doesn't end there. After their execution, the brothers were buried in a family tomb, as was tradition. Years later, when the tomb was reopened to bury another family member, something inexplicable was discovered. The Carter brothers' bodies were gone. No signs of tampering, no evidence of grave robbers. Just an empty crypt. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claim the brothers had risen from the dead, their thirst for blood driving them to roam the streets once more. Others whispered that they were never human to begin with, but vampires hiding in plain sight. Over the years, there have been countless sightings of two men matching the Carter brothers' descriptions. They're often seen in the French Quarter, lingering in the shadows, or vanishing into thin air when approached. Tour guides tell their story on ghost walks, warning visitors to avoid dark alleys and always travel in groups. Some skeptics argue that the story is just that, a story, a piece of folklore born from the city's rich imagination. But those who've encountered the piercing gazes of two mysterious figures swear there's truth to the legend. New Orleans is a city where the line between reality and the supernatural blurs. The Carter brothers' tale is a reminder that some secrets are better left undiscovered. Whether they were monsters, madmen, or something in between, their legacy has become part of the city's dark tapestry. So, the next time you find yourself wandering the streets of New Orleans, keep an eye on the shadows. And if you feel the hairs on the back of your neck rise, remember, the Carter brothers might just be watching. Thank you for joining me for this chilling journey into the heart of New Orleans' darkest legend. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales that will keep you up at night. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe, because you never really know what lurks in the dark.